Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday, and this is our 26th. Do you believe it? 26th episode.
26. Wow.
26th, Jeannie, of Rasslin Radio Relived. I'm so excited that we actually made it to 26 weeks. I can't stand it. We have an incredible guest today. But before we bring him on, okay, we have to talk real quick about a couple things that are coming up. Number one is don't forget May 3rd of 2025. Okay, mark the date. You have to mark the date because in a couple of weeks, we are actually going to make the announcement of what that date entails. All right. Also today, we're going to be at what's the name of that?
ECWA.
ECWA. Jeannie and I and Joel are going to be there. And it's at where? I don't have the paperwork with me, Jeannie. Where is it going to be?
In Morgantown, something, New Jersey.
Right. It's called
the Dugout.
The Dugout. That's where it's going to be. It's High Stakes is the name of the ECWA the show. It's going to be at the Dugout. All you got to do is look up the Dugout in Marlboro, Morgantown. They kind of like intercross there.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah,
like right on the border of those two. So
right, and I think the doors open at 6:30.
Yes,
the show probably starts at around 7. Okay, so we're going to have a great time. You know, come and see what's going on. Say hi to all of us, and we also want to talk about. We're up to 542 signatures. Okay, on the banner. Yeah, we have a banner that we're trying to get everybody to sign. Please sign. Okay, when Jeannie and I post our show today with our extremely incredible guest, we're going to post. We're going to try and get and post the petition signing, because the petition, as you know, is to put a banner up at the 2300 Arena with regard to the people, the 5 people who have been incredibly devoted to Philadelphia and have put it on the map in a lot of different ways. And those people are the late Larry Winters, Joel Goodhart, Tony Stetson, DC Drake, and who's the last one, Jeannie?
Johnny Hotbody.
There you go, Johnny Hotbody. I know, I just want playing with you, see if you get it. Okay, so anyway, please. Also, you can go to my email at 316Carmela with 1L at gmail.com. Email us anything you want to ask, anything. Also, we've gotten a lot more requests from fans who want to be on the show. We do like having fans on the show, not just wrestlers, but fans make the whole thing. Without the fans, we would not be here. So please just let us know. We'll let you on the show. It'll be great. We'll talk. There's no kayfabe, and we'll do what we got to do. You know, I love it. Okay, so I think now is time. Maybe we should bring our guest on since he's kind of sitting back there waiting.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited.
I am. I'm so excited. I never met this gentleman in person. Okay. If it was 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, I could say he's one of the few wrestlers that I never met. But, you know, in the past couple of years or more, since I've gotten old in my old age, I have not met him. I'm looking forward to meeting him. Only virtually here, but I'm looking forward to actually one day meeting him in person. I think it would be great. Anyway, here we go. You guys know him as Mad Dog, DC Drake, and we know him as Don. So here he comes right now. Say hello to DC Drake. Hi.
Hi. Jeannie, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. And yourself?
We're good. It's weird to see you with no makeup.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not going to tell you what to do at nighttime, but, you know, we'll just leave it at that. So, just kidding. But no, it's, I remember talking with you on the radio many, many years ago, Jeannie. Or, I mean, Carmela. It was, my goodness, it must have been, what year? 80?
In the 80s, yeah.
In the 80s, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we spoke, but we never met, and I'm looking forward. And Jeannie, same thing. I mean, I'm excited to meet you guys as well, and it's great to be on the show. So thank you.
No problem.
I got to meet you twice. Once back, in late 80s, early 90s, and then at a wrestling convention a couple years ago.
Oh yes, okay,
yeah. Yeah, a couple years ago. That was
yes, I do remember that now. That was down in what the heck was it?
That was at the 2300 arena.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the first time I ever did something like that. And probably the last time I think I will do something like that.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like it. And I understand people. I'll explain why. And I don't want to sound snobbish or snooty or anything, but it just bothered me, I guess, knowing that the kind of money that was being charged for pictures, and it bothered me a little bit. And I know fans are there and want to do it, but we had people come up in wheelchairs, and it just felt very strange to me to have to charge them. Again, I understand the money factor. I understand people need to make money, but to me, it just felt horrible. And I know I couldn't do it because the promoter paid me to be there.
Right.
And it just didn't feel good, and I don't think I'll do it again. And I bless other people for doing it. I understand it, but it wasn't right for me. So.
Well, funny you should say that, because the last couple of shows, maybe even more, we talked about how the other organizations like WWE or mostly WWE are charging like incredible, insane amounts for people to get autographs and pictures and everything. And I'm on this campaign kind of thing. I would just love for them just one time to have one wrestler be for free. I mean, like you said, it's okay if you have to do it, if it's incorporated in the card or whatever. But like you said too, people are disabled. They save money all year. They come in wheelchairs. And they have to pay $200 and $300 a picture. That's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. I got to commend you for that, because
it's just, to me, if it weren't for those fans, I would not have a career. And
exactly,
it's just giving back a little bit. How hard is it to sign a book? How hard is it to sign a picture? That's the way I look at it. I was blessed in many ways. My career was, I cut it short based because of my own choices. But the time I spent with Joel, the time I spent doing other things with National Wrestling Federation, if it weren't for those fans, I'd have nothing.
Exactly.
And so, and that's what made me perform every night, knowing that they had paid. I mean, back in those days, that's hard-earned money for people.
You got that right.
And I don't care whether it was 100 people sitting in a house or 5,000. They got the best that I had to offer, because if it weren't for them, I'd have nothing. And that's the way I looked at it. So.
Well, that's wonderful. God bless you for saying that, because sometimes I feel like I'm the only one, and Jeannie who actually talk about that, like stuff like that. But let's start from the beginning. And can you tell us, please, how you became, or what made you decide to become a wrestler?
I can go back to the late 50s, maybe early 60s, when my grandmother, and I think everybody has a grandmother story. My grandmother was watching wrestling. It was back in the days when it was on black and white TV. I think it was the Dumont Network, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And that's when they had the antenna. We had 3 or 4 stations we got, but wrestling would be on, I think it was Friday or Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was a rainy night. My parents dropped me off to be babysat. My grandmother's watching the matches, and the Sheik was on. And she was swearing and hitting the table. And I said, oh God, what's making my lovely grandmother, be like this? And part of my language, I'll say, she said, that goddamn Sheik. I never heard that kind of language from my grandmother before. So that intrigued me. And then I watched it again. And this time there was blood. This maybe 2 weeks later, and it scared the heck out of me at that point. But there was something about it that fading in and out of the snowy TV, and adjusting the aerial. And you remember putting the Reynolds wrap,
foil, yep,
foil on the thing, and
yeah.
But it was intriguing. And then I guess maybe the mid '60s, my father and my uncle took me to a show, and that was in New Jersey. I think it was Phillipsburg, New Jersey, where I grew up, at the Armory. Mm-hmm. And on the way up, they're talking about how fake it is. And they're driving along, and nobody that big. But they all agreed, though, that the championship matches weren't fake.
Okay.
But the matches we were going to see tonight were probably fake. And they were laughing about it and get up. So we get there. And again, you walk into the place, and the it was the Armory, so it smelled a little bit like diesel fuel. They had things back inside. But the chairs were out, but you could smell the hot dogs and the popcorn people were making outside.
Oh, yeah.
And I get there, I'm sitting in the chair, and the chairs were broken. I remember it was pinching my butt, sitting in the chair, and they were still talking about how fake it was. Then the lights went down, and then the guy started coming out, and just like that, no matter how fake it was, my dad was up, "You dirty," and so it intrigued me. How could it be this? And then they got there and saw that, and it was just one of the most exciting times of my young life, seeing that. And so that's really what got me into it. What would turn people from talking about how bad it was or how fake it was into raving lunatics. And then I watched it on TV growing up. And then when I got my license, I was able to go to the Philadelphia Arena for the first time for the TV tapings. And I don't know whether you guys ever had a chance to go to the arena for the tapings or not, but back in those days, they actually gave you free tickets to get in. They moved everybody to the front, right in front of the camera because there weren't enough people there. But just walking into the arena and the history of the Philadelphia Arena and the smell of when you walked in, and these are the things that made wrestling great to me. It was the ambiance, it was everything. It was the look of the place, the people standing outside, the smell of cigar smoke, hot dogs cooking, popcorn cooking, liniment. You name it, there were just a number of smells you walked in. I remember we walked down to the ring, and the first thing you did, I think it was 16. First thing I think everybody did was hit the mat. Boom, boom. The dust came up. The dust came up.
Oh, yeah.
The stains. We're looking at the stains, saying, "Gee, is that fake blood? Let's look at that. What's that?" And then the matches started. No air conditioning in the Philadelphia Arena at the time. They had the fans going. I remember they had the cameras, the sides open because it was so hot in there. They had the fans blowing on the side of the cameras to keep them cooled off. And then the matches started. The lights went down. The matches started. And what an experience! And it was. Go ahead, Don.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It was everything combined that just. It was the wrestlers. It was the it was the fans. It was just an exciting. You could never match it, and you can't match it today. You walk into some of these arenas today; they're so sterile, they're so clean, it's not there anymore.
No,
there was nothing like those days.
No, you know what? I was going to say, I was literally just about born and raised at the Philadelphia Arena.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I was 6 years old when I started going. My parents knew the people, obviously, before me, that my dad talked to. You're saying it's fake. My dad talked to Two-Ton Tony Galento. I don't know if you remember that name.
I do, yeah.
He said to my father, he brought him over into the side, and he said, "You see that door over there?" Which he was pointing to the dressing room. He goes, "That's where all the decisions are made," And I was little. I didn't know any better. I was walking around with the wrestlers because we were such good friends with them. I hung out back there with them at a young age. And Ivan Putski and I were very, very close. And there was a time that he got in the ring and he said to me, "Hello, Carmela," or something like that. And Vince flipped out on him at a TV taping. "You can't do that." And, blah, blah, blah. And all the wrestlers were so kind and when they were so nice. And then you don't know all this, but then eventually they all started coming to my house, having dinner, staying over, because back then they had to make their own way. It wasn't like today where everybody has an agent, everybody has their own booker, everybody has, so they didn't know what they were doing half the time. Like, I need to get so-and-so, and I don't know how to get there or what. And my mom and dad were like, come over to my house. And they did. They came to our house. They had dinner, blah, blah, blah. And then, we would drive them or also attend the show wherever they were going to be. But you talking about the arena and all the smells and it's incredible because as soon as you walked in that building, I can tell you right now, you walk right down the center doors. As soon as you go inside, the fans, of course, went a little tiny bit to the left to go in, but a sharp left, if you walk straight down, was where the dressing room was. And then if you walk straight down this way, it was another area where dressing rooms were. But the kayfabe back then was incredible. I mean, even when they stayed at my house, if my neighborhood, neighborhood kids wanted to come in and see them, if there was a heel and a face in there, then we weren't allowed to let them in. They weren't allowed to see them together. And, then as time went on and my mom passed away, I started doing all this stuff. I started doing the cooking. I started having them over. It was amazing. But anyway, I'm sorry, but I just got on a tangent about that. But so tell us then, this is how you wanted to become a wrestler. Now, how did you become a wrestler?
Well, I got a job at that point. I started working for the Department of Corrections in New Jersey as a corrections officer.
Okay.
And I still had the wrestling bug. And I guess it was about 4 or 5 years into my correction officer career that the lieutenant at the place I worked at showed me an ad that was in the New York Star Ledger.
Wow.
That they were looking for wrestlers, and there was a guy that was training wrestlers. The guy's name was Tito Torres. I don't really remember that name or not. So,
yes,
that was really my first. I had no idea how to get into the business. No idea. I still loved it. Still went, and so I contacted Tito and started training down there in Jersey City. And again, there was, you talk about the magic of the Philadelphia Arena. The same thing was where Tito had his gym. I pulled up. It was a tenement area. It was a horrible, nasty area. There were actually rats running in the street. And at the same time, you could see the World Trade Center across the way still being in construction. And I walked into the place, and again, there was the ring, bugs crawling in and out of the ring. There was that horsehair, I think, that was underneath it. And I could see bugs crawling in and out. The sun was shining. Again, I remember all this. The sun was shining in one of the windows, and you could see the dust, and I hit the ring, and I'm waiting. There was a young lady there, and I'm not sure who she was, even to this day. Some people said it was his daughter. I'm not sure. But she asked what it was there for. I explained. Or you got to wait till my dad gets here. Or no, you got to wait till Tito gets here. Okay, I'll wait. So I see a bus, a New Jersey Transit bus, pull up outside, and Tito gets off, and he's dressed and he's dirty. And I said, wait a minute, he's a wrestler. What's he wearing work clothes for? And again, here I am. I'm a correctional officer, law enforcement officer. I'm early 20s. Still a bit of a mark, I guess, even though I knew what wrestling was about. But
yeah,
I saw Tito. I saw him when he worked. He did jobs for WWF. But to me, seeing him go off the bus, I was shocked. I said, don't these guys make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year? And now he had a job.
Yeah.
And that was my first awakening. And he meets with me, and we're talking about what he's going to do. And the first thing he says, he looks at me, because at that time I was benching 500 pounds. I was in really good shape. And he looks at me, he taps me on the shoulder. He says, I'm going to make you an effing star. Only use the word.
Yeah, yeah.
So at the time, I was really proud of myself. I figured he was upselling me. That's okay. But that's what he said to me. And I was really excited. So we signed up to start doing the training. I went down a couple nights later, started working out with him. I get in the ring, and it was horrible. And then some of the guys he had working for him or coming in for him, they were saying, oh, Tito, I don't have money to pay for training this week. Can I give you some food stamps? And I'm watching this, saying, this is not what I expect. What am I getting into? And but yet Tito knew how to bring me about and talk about the business. And he sat me down. He gave me a talk, and it was one of the best talks I ever had about wrestling. He said, listen, you're not going to get rich. He said, but there's something special about this. He said, I can't let it go. He said, I can't let it go. He said, you can't let it go. He said, you got a good job with the state. He said, you're making good money, but you can't let it go. And that's what keeps us doing this. And then I spoke to the young lady one night. I was waiting for Tito, and she said the same thing. He said, he comes in here night after night. She's sweeping the ring. And he says, I keep telling him to stop. He's going to hurt himself, but he can't let it go.
No.
It's in his blood. It's who he is. And he got a good job, but he can't let this go. And that's really what I think it is about the wrestling business. And I ended up leaving there. I started working for the Savoldis, doing some work for Mario and Angelo in New England. And then I decided at that point that I wanted to start my own little wrestling organization in the Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
And a lot of that was due to the fact that I had kids. I couldn't be on the road, or I didn't want to be on the road. I'll put it that way. I did have a decent job with the Department of Corrections. I became a senior correctional officer at that point and was moving up the ranks. So I made a deal with a local public access station, Twin County Cable, where they would tape our shows. I set up just like Vince had his setup, and I guess other organizations. We tape once every 3 weeks for 3 shows. We did a lot. I did all the post-production work with them. I trained our own guys. We had the VFW in Easton. We set up a ring on the 3rd floor. Started training guys. I then got involved with a gentleman named Paul Swanger from Abington, the Concrete Cowboy. He brought some
I
guys.
heard of that.
Okay, so he brought some guys along. And then I also got involved with some guys from Pittsburgh. And they brought some guys in. And then we had guys from New Jersey brought some guys, and we had TV. So we started doing the TV show. And very well viewed in the Lehigh Valley. And of course, at that time, the Lehigh Valley was a hotbed of wrestling as well. Vince was doing the tapings at Hamburg.
Mm-hmm.
Then he moved to Allentown to do I think it was Tuesday nights he was doing the tapings in Allentown, Wednesday in Hamburg, if I remember.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then not only that, but then Bruno opened up an organization.
Yep.
Out of the Americas Hotel.
Yep.
They were doing
he was there all the time.
Yeah, so he was doing tapings there with Mike Mittman.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually met Mike Mittman when I was doing the stuff in Easton, and Joe McHugh. And they were giving me some tips. And then when Vince actually moved out and went big time, I actually had Joe and Mike working with us. So we were doing our shows. I was actually running the tapes all over the place to all the local cable accesses in the Poconos and other areas. We started running live shows off of that. And then I met a guy named Bob Raskin. I don't really know Bob or not. And Bob said,
yeah.
I was at a point now where I was doing everything for free. My money was going into this. I was losing money. Again, like Tito, I couldn't let it go. It's one of those things that I could not get it out of my blood. And then Bob came along, and Bob said, listen, I got an idea. Let me take over this organization. I have access to a lot of different people. And he said, you can be the booker. You can take care of the TV, and you can work for me. I said, okay. So then Bob took over, and that's when we went from I think we were no, we weren't. You guys were Tri-State. We were Colonial Wrestling Alliance, I believe, CWA. Okay. And then we went from that to the National Wrestling Federation. And that's where that went to. So I was a booker for them. We actually moved to a very high-tech company. We used the same people that Vince used to tape our TV show, which was Channel 39 out of Allentown. Mm-hmm. Kerwin Silfies, he was still working for them at the time too. So we used their truck, their people. We actually brought our own director in, and we started doing those shows with them. And at that point, now we had access to a lot of guys. So we had Slaughter on our shows. We had Bam Bam Bigelow. We had you name it. I mean, we had a ton of talent. Because at that time, that's when Vince started letting people go, I think, and the guys became free agents. And so we had
yeah.
And our goal at the time was, again, to run shows, independent shows, use the stars to get the TV views, but build our own talent within that organization. Again, we used Mike Kalua, we used Tom Brandy. I mean, you name the guys from the Philly area, we used them because they were very well trained, very talented people. Philadelphia, wonderfully talented area with great wrestling talent there. And we ended up getting on a couple of different sports channels. Then our goal was at that point, well, let's talk to some other promoters around the country that are running shows and see if we can't put something together big. And they can keep their own little local areas going and use their talent. We'll supply the big name talent. And then everybody can run their little shows based on that, but we'll continue to do that. And at that point, then Bob Raskin, I'm sorry, am I rattling on too much? I'm sorry.
Oh, God, no. No. Take your time. Everybody's going to love this. Go ahead.
So Bob Raskin then teamed up with another company out of Camden, New Jersey, named Creative Entertainment. And they had access to the state fairs because they booked a lot of oldie groups. And Rob Russin, I know, have you heard that name?
Rob Russin, yep, absolutely.
Rob Russin worked for them. Mike Dano was with them.
Yep.
And so Bob formed a group with them. And again, I stayed out of that part. I had no ability now at that point to put any money into this other than my work, which is what I did. I continued to do the wrestling for them. I continued to do the TV shows, the booking. And I became a champion for them, the champion for them. Now, again, it wasn't an ego thing. The reason why I was the champion was simple. I was there every night. I could show up every night.
Right.
We couldn't put the belt on Slaughter. We couldn't put the belt on a name talent because other people were using them. We also then brought Wendy Richter, and she did become our ladies champion.
Cool.
And then we ran big shows. I remember one of the big shows we ran was in Bricktown, New Jersey. I believe it was at the Ice Palace. Big TV taping there. We had the first, which we believe was the first women's cage match between Wendy Richter and Heidi Lee Morgan.
Oh wow!
I worked a cage match with Brody. It was Brody and Strongbow against myself and Damian Kane in the cage.
Wow.
So we had a lot cooking. We then ended up getting to the point where we spoke with a national outlet that syndicated shows that was willing to pair us with HR Puff and stuff. Now, again, we're going back. I don't know whether you guys
way back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Jeannie, you remember that? I know.
Yeah.
I see you looking. Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah. I watched it every week.
Okay. So what it was, that was a well-known show, but in order to get us on, they were going to pair us as part of a package with them. And then infighting started within the organization. Who was going to do this? Who was going to do that? And everything fell apart. At that point, I was still running the live shows for them. The TV fell apart. And I remember I was booking a show. I think it was in Morgantown, West Virginia. I had Wendy Richter on the show. We had Slaughter on the show. The ring showed up minus one of the ring guys. I mean, things at that point, the money was gone. I mean, it was just horrible. We had to carry out our, what we were doing. I'm out there helping put the ring up. I'm helping get the concessions in place. I'm taking care of the athletic commissions.
Right.
And I walk in the back, and Wendy said to me, just an offhand remark, "Are you going to sweep the floors too?" That just hit me in such a way. And I said, if it wasn't for me doing this, you wouldn't get paid tonight. But that sickened me with wrestling so bad that the next day, after I dropped everything off at the office, I gave him my keys. I said, I'm done. I'm finished. I want nothing to do with this business anymore. I'm fed up with it. I'm sick of it.
Oh, wow.
And I walked away. And then I got the call from somebody to be on your show, Carmela, you and Joel. Okay.
Right.
And you guys were running a show. I think it was one of your first shows at the
we did Woodhaven, we did Armory, we did so many. I don't remember what
it was. The one in Philly. I can't remember which one it was, but I know I did it was the one I remember it because it was one where I came off the balcony.
Oh yeah, I think that might have been just for Joel. When Joel and I, it might have been just for Joel because
you were on the radio though. I did talk to you. You were on the show, I believe. I spoke to you. So
Yep. But it's funny that you're saying all this, and we've had other wrestlers on, obviously, who have spoken about how it is in your blood and how you can't get away from it. You really can't. It's like something as stupid as me as a non-wrestler. I had the talk show on the radio years ago, and like you're talking about putting money out. I wound up with a little girl. We almost lost our house because of the money. My ex-husband and I, we had to get out. We had to. But all these years later, like I'm probably old enough to be your grandmother now that you're talking, and I said, well, what the hell? Somebody said to me one time, they said, get your Rasslin Radio tapes and put them out there. They'll leave a legacy for your children. And I never thought of that. And I thought, okay, well, we'll do that. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Everybody else is doing podcasts. Why don't I? So here I am at my age doing a podcast. It's 26 weeks in and I get you, okay? Because I feel like it's in me somehow. Like I've since I was 6 years old, I got over 60 years in the business, and excuse me. And it's funny because we talk about Joel. Joel and I are still incredibly wonderful friends. When we partied, it was not a bad parting at all. It was necessary, And it's funny because we were going to have Joel on today. All right. He wouldn't have been able to make it till noon. And I spoke to you about that, Don.
Yes.
And so Jeannie and I and Joel are going out this afternoon. So I thought, you know what? Let's do it at 10 o'clock in the morning. And now talking to you, I'm so glad we did it without Joel, because I don't know when to shut up. Joel doesn't know when to shut up. With the two of us on here together, Don, we would still be 30 minutes later, we'd still be at, hi, how did you start getting into wrestling? Okay. So he's going to laugh when he sees this. He's going to say, you always have to say stuff like that. Why don't you shut up? But it's incredible. I mean, I love talking to you, and we don't have a time limit on this, so you keep going. But you're absolutely right with everything you're saying. And you're bringing back so many memories to me. Like, I'm getting the chills because, again, I at 6 years old, I was born in the arena. It's all that stuff. But you then started wrestling again, you started saying, for Joel. So let's get back into that. And I didn't want to interrupt you. I love listening to you, but I just wanted to kind of, get in there for a second.
I ain't shutting up either, so that's the problem.
No,
so,
there you go. Go like the three of us.
Poor Jeannie, I'm sorry. Just go off anytime you want to.
No, I'm enjoying listening. I would like to, and I'm sure in this part you'll get into it, but I'm dying. I want to know, like, whose idea was it? Joel's? Was it yours? Was it Larry's? The feud with you and Larry Winters, to me, was so iconic and legendary. Like, how did that come about, or did it come about organically, or was there a specific plan? Hey, look.
Well, what ended up happening, let me jump back just a little bit because I want to give you a little bit more history, but then I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, after I closed shop, left NWF, and again, I'm listening to Carmela talk about, it's still in your blood. Well, I ended up taking a job up here in New England, and I moved up here, and I'm swearing to myself, never again. And then I ended up opening up my own organization called Pro Star Wrestling.
Oh, wow.
Pro Star Championship Wrestling. I had access to all these guys. I ran a whole summer. I ran fair shows, and I had a lot of money coming in, put a lot of money out. But right at the end, again, I ran a last show. I think it was in North Carolina, and a couple of guys stood me up because they had a good house. Well, I said, listen, when I have a bad house, you never offer to give me any money back. Yeah. But I have a good house where I can make money. Now you want more. Wow. And it's not just your name, because this is a sold show. Okay. Yep. So I sold this show. And that's how I tried to do it. I sold the shows at that point. But I said, it's not because of you. Well, I'm not going out there to you. And again, that's when I said, I'm finished. I'm not going to have these people hold me up. I have a professional job outside of here. I'm not going to play this game anymore.
Right.
And but then again, I had options to go other places. At that point, I think it was probably early 90s to the mid. There was nothing in the rest, no money anywhere in wrestling. I mean, it was dead. And at that point, I said, I'm done. And I actually, for about 20 years, I just stayed in the background. I didn't say anything. But getting back to Joel, so Jeannie, I actually started working with Larry on our NWF shows, and we had a great match. It was an NWF show. It was at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and I did the Mad Dog thing. Larry was the Beach Boy at the time.
Oh my God.
We had this great match, and I thought it was great. I'll speak for myself. I remember the people were so far away that I had a gimmick, a pair of brass knuckles, but I made them so freaking big. I put white tape around it so everybody could see him.
Everybody could see.
And I pulled him out, and Larry takes it from me and beats me, and they're carrying me out in the stretcher, and the whole place, all the service people are singing, nah, hey, goodbye. They're singing that as they're carrying me out. And then after that, Larry and I just started having matches. And then again, like I said, when it died, it died. But then Joel put us together on that first show. I think it was the first show I worked on anyway. Joel put us together, and I said to Larry, there's a great house out here, Temple University, right? I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, we got to do something. Joel's got the names, but he's talked to me on the phone before and said, he wants to really do something, keep it local and keep the local guys working. Let you and I do something big. So I said, I'm going to go up on that balcony and I want you to throw me off.
Oh my God.
And he looks at me, he says, are you freaking crazy? I said, no, I'm pretty good at falling and I know how to hit and roll, so that was one of the things I did. Although I remember one night I was working with, I think it was Jerry Lawler. It was an NWF show. I worked with Lawler in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, and I went out and I scoped the area. And I wanted him to throw me off the bleachers down into between the bleachers because there was mats and stuff down there. But what ended up happening was, in between the time I looked at it and the time we went out to work, they put volleyball nets down there. And
oh my God!
They threw me off. I hit it. My legs went out from underneath me. I fell on my butt and I couldn't walk. I thought I was paralyzed.
Oh, geez.
I ended up breaking my tailbone. Yeah, that wasn't good.
Oh God!
I had to sit with those little donuts for like 6 months.
Oh my God!
That hurt. But anyway, so I told Larry, just hit me down. I know how to roll. I know how to hit and roll. I'll hang down far enough to where it's not that big it's going to look impressive, but it really isn't all that impressive.
Right.
And I'm still up there hanging there. And I say, now step on my fingers, Harry, push me. Larry saying, no. I said, do it. And he did. And that really went over big. If I had to do it again, I think I probably would have saved that as the finish for the match rather than because I ended up crawling back into the ring. That was something you probably should have had a finish with and not a
not during the match.
Not do it during the match. But the whole goal was to try to do something big.
That was big.
Well, I remember seeing after, I think it was after the wrote in the magazine or that what we saw may have changed wrestling forever.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And Larry, I can only imagine with him being so quiet and so demure and stuff like that, like, a nice guy and everything. I could just imagine him going, oh my God, I killed him. Oh my God, if he gets hurt, it's my fault. Oh my God.
Even at the top of the balcony.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
You can find this match on YouTube. I've watched it many times.
Oh goodness.
And you can see it up there, and you can see Larry. I'm like, oh my God, he's like terrified. He's terrified.
Yeah.
And I even watched it with Larry one time, and he was like, oh my God, that was just, I was terrified. He's like, especially because he went over the balcony first. But he didn't fall. He got back, and then, you went over, and oh my God, it's definitely an amazing thing. People definitely have to go check it out.
Yeah, well, I want to definitely. So, how did the makeup and all that stuff come to play? You just decided to do it one day, or was that a setup?
I didn't know. When I started working with the Savoldis, I just worked as myself. Yeah, that was as blah as could be. What do you do?
Yeah.
So, working in the mental health field, I decided, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make myself look as nutty as possible. And I actually wanted to go out and look like I was just come off the street somewhere. So I started putting some just eyeshadow underneath my eyes. Looked like I, was up for like 40 days and went out and started foaming from the mouth and just wanted to look crazy.
Yeah.
And somebody yelled to me, what are you, a mad dog? And at that point, I said, hey, I like that. And so that started that whole persona. And that's what I worked with. So that was, and again, that character probably would not work. It would work for a little bit, but you can't carry it off too long without moving to another territory. If the territories were still alive, that'd be great. You could move someplace else and do the gimmick, but after a while, it grows old, so, but it worked for me. And it was fun and chasing kids around and going after people. I mean, I worked outside the ring sometimes longer than they did in the ring and still got over it, so.
Well, it does because the people, I think, in general are spoiled sometimes and they're used to seeing so many different things in so many different ways. Like wrestling could go out and literally kill a wrestler every night and the fans wouldn't have enough of it. Then you'd have to kill 2 every night. Then you know what I'm saying? But unfortunately, that's because I think at some point we were given as fans and as people in the wrestling business, too many openings. when all of a sudden you didn't have a doctor anymore, and all of a sudden the commission wasn't involved anymore, and all of a sudden, you could start falling off of things, and then all of a sudden you bleed every night. Then all of a sudden, but then the people don't realize, that the damage, the injuries, the infections that come with the blood and all that stuff, they don't realize that. And I don't think, and again, I'm going to tell you, this is why we have this podcast, because listening to you right now, and I've been in the business, like I said, even as a child, over 60 years, but listening to you, I think would make people stop and think. Our point is to make them realize that wrestlers are people, okay? They're not just this icon that strolls into the ring all the time. They start out, they're people. They have families, they have children, they have wives, they have husbands, they have jobs. And they have to live a life. They can't just come out and kill themselves for you and then go home, and then what? You know what I mean? But I wanted to ask you now, you mentioned mental health. Okay. Is that the work you're doing now?
No.
Okay.
I actually retired from that work a couple of years ago.
Okay.
The work I'm doing now, I'm working with an elder law attorney, and I do his website, I do all his marketing. But the field of elder law is kind of interesting because there's so many old people today. Us baby boomers are now aging into old age quickly.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are bringing with them things that I don't think we ever saw with our parents, and our grandparents. They're bringing addiction with them. They're bringing addiction is a big one. They're bringing a lot of mental health into it because a lot of them, we know our age, Carmela.
Yes.
We grew up in the 60s when drugs were every place and sex was every place. And we even have people, with Viagra talk about sex, right? We even have sexually transmitted diseases with seniors.
I believe it.
That are huge. And so what I do with him, I mean, I know some legal stuff because I do some legal work for him. But he hired me initially to work with some of his clients that do bring some of those things in. So now I do a lot of that work for him. I do the marketing for him. We had a radio show in Providence for 3 years until the COVID thing came through. But now I do a lot of teaching of nurses on addiction issues. I talk about, when to take the keys away when somebody's too old to drive. Senior bullying, that's a big one that we're doing a lot of workshops on.
Oh, my God.
That presentation I just did the other day, I was telling you about when you and I were talking online to the Ombudsman's Association around the country. That was about senior bullying and also relocation stress syndrome, which is another big one. People moving into senior housing. Because remember, we're living a lot longer today than we did live. So we're facing things. We can't stay in the homes anymore. So people moving in and not being dealt with, how do you give up something that you've been at for 70 years? And now you're moving to a place where you don't know anybody and the environment's changed. And so there's a lot of depression, even suicide, which is very high among seniors.
And you feel abandoned. Yep.
Oh, yes, because your kids aren't living in the backyards anymore. Now they're scattered about the country. So that's the work I do now. So again, like wrestling, when I retired, that lasted about 6 months. My brain still worked, and I said I can't say retired.
Well, it's funny. Again, I'm sorry that I keep comparing myself to you, but I'm really not, because we seem to have a lot in common.
Please, we do.
For 30 years, I worked 3 jobs, and one of them was to take care of the elderly. Okay, I love taking care of the elderly. I love them. Anyway, at one point, I became an advocate for elderly citizens in nursing homes, and I cannot tell you the literal crime that I saw happening in these, facilities. I am an aggressive person. I have an aggressive personality, and I was at this. Shut up, Jeannie. And I was at this nursing home once, and my client was this beautiful older man. He was sitting in a wheelchair, but in order to keep him, this was back in the day when they were allowed to restrain. Now they're not anymore.
Right.
But he was in a wheelchair, and what they did, and I'm not trying to be gross or anything, but they had this implementation on the seat of the wheelchair that went between his legs, so that if he fell forward, he wouldn't come out of the wheelchair. Okay, fine. Well, this poor man, the way he was sitting, it wasn't comfortable for him, the way that implement was hitting his area, And I said, I went up to the nurses, and these nurses were just there chatting. Aides were all up there chatting. And I said, excuse me, Mr. So-and-so is having a lot of problems. He's in a lot of pain with that thing between his legs. Can we move him a little bit because of the way it's positioned? Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there in a while. So I went over and I'm waiting. It's like 5 minutes went by and I'm trying to pull him up myself, but I couldn't do it. So I went back over. I asked again, and they got a little snippy with me. So finally, I went over and I banging on the nurse's station. I'm like, look, bitch, like just like that. I'm like, you don't come over and help him now, okay? You're going to go home with all those wigs that you guys have on. I'm telling you right now, come here now and help me with him. And they did eventually, pissing and moaning. They did. And the one girl says, I don't have a wig. I said, well, guess what? You're going to go home bald. It's just that simple. We helped them, and I put it in my notes, and the family did come forward and filed a suit, took him out of there, But you're right. The bullying of elderly is unreal. How anybody in their right mind can sleep at night by hurting an animal, a child, an elderly person, to me is ridiculous. It's
yeah.
I can't, The other thing I wanted to get into with you also is you started a drug rehab called Beyond No. Is that correct?
No, it wasn't a drug rehab. It was actually a program that
Okay.
I used to go into the schools before we did wrestling shows.
Okay.
And talk to the kids about the dangers of drugs. And it's always been, knock on wood, even though I've never had an issue. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I never did. It was all around me. When I worked in corrections, I saw it there. I had it in my family. It was really important, and I felt getting the word out about this. And this is when I worked for the National Wrestling Federation. We started that program called Beyond No. I had Slaughter speak with us one night. Strongwell would speak with us.
Wow.
I had Heidi Lee Morgan, who would go with us. I made sure all the wrestlers were urine screened, so they were clean. Good. Before we went to do the presentations. Mm-hmm. And again, we got great, but we went in. Yes, some could say it was a PR stunt to get people to the show, and partly it was, but the other part of it was that I truly cared about, getting this message from people who kids looked up to. Right. Was very important. So we actually did the program through the DA's office in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, and had an ex-cop working for us too. So it was something that was important to me, to do that.
That's awesome, because I have it in my family as well. Alcoholics and a drug addict, and let me tell you, people are very quick to talk. They're very quick to talk about things that they don't understand or that they've never experienced. If you've ever, and you know this as well as I do, if you've ever had an experience with an alcoholic or a drug addict, it's not that easy to just say to them, you're doing this because you want to. You can stop anytime. No, you can't. Okay. And I think that it goes much deeper than what people understand. It's a ridiculous thing, but it's life altering. Let me tell you, it is life altering. But I think that's very honorable of you to do. I personally would love to do something like that. I don't think anybody would listen to me, but because I'm nobody. But I think it would be nice to be able to go into schools still and be able to, talk to kids about that. But let's go back to wrestling now.
Okay.
Are you still wrestling at all? Do you do anything with wrestling today?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. How long has it been since your last match?
20 years.
Has it really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
maybe longer. I mean, I don't remember. I did a show in the last show. I think I did. The last show I know I did was here in Fall River.
Okay.
I did a show. It was a comeback match. It was the night that they gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award with Killer Kowalski.
Wow.
What an honor that was. Let me tell you, to be sitting there next to Killer Kowalski. I mean, I was nothing in this business compared to Killer Kowalski, but it was just such an honor. And what a nice man. I mean, as a kid, I feared that guy. I would see him come in the ring couldn't even understand him sometimes.
That was perfect. That was perfect.
And
oh my God.
here he is sitting next to me. We're sitting on the stage after getting the awards. He's talking to me like a PhD, you know. So, what a great guy. And I did a show that night, and just to also talk about some health issues. I had a couple of heart attacks and a major one.
Oh, God bless
ended
you.
up getting triple bypass.
Wow.
And I have a defibrillator in.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was actually after my last, after I had wrestled before, but I did have heart issues that probably started in the late 90s. And I remember that match. I was in a tag team match, and I started getting chest pains while I'm in the ring.
Oh my God!
And it was angina. I mean, I wasn't having a heart attack.
Right.
But I'm saying to myself, I'm waiting for this match to get over. I was with the one Dudley. Was it Spike Dudley, the little one?
Oh yeah. That was his name, Spike. Yep.
Yeah, and we were against Brutus Beefcake and somebody else. And I was working here. I was running a drug program here in Fall River at the time, so that's why I ended up doing it. Because they thought it would be great. The promoters thought it'd be great for me to do it, so I did.
Right.
But I remember waiting to get back to the locker room and waiting for that little pill to put under my tongue and saying, "Oh, please, let's."
Oh my God, you poor thing.
So,
but isn't that funny how people, wrestlers, that sometimes no matter what, they still go on with the match, and that is like, it's either crazy or it's commendable. I don't know. Like when you look at that, like
yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have that commitment to the fans. And then, again, that's another thing fans don't realize. They don't know. Like we were talking about a couple weeks ago, and Sid Vicious jumped off the rope and he broke his shin bone.
Yeah.
His shin and his leg is floating all over the place, but he finished the match, Your story so far is unreal. I got to be honest with you. As I said before, I was not. I'm sure we would have had to have met somewhere because I was at the Bruno stuff all the time. Dominic DeNucci was like my dad. I mean, he was, it's another long story, but he was like my father. So I was there all the time. Jeannie, you were there, weren't you, for a couple of those shows? Okay, then David Sammartino. No, you weren't?
That was before my time. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. But David Sammartino was there, and I swear we probably met.
Probably
don't
did.
Even know it. Yeah, don't even know it. And I wanted to ask you. We're going to have another. Well, between now and December, we're going to have a lot more podcasts. I mean, I'd like to have podcasts till I pass away, but between now and December, we're already booked. But I was going to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, we're doing a couple of things. We're going to do a Larry Winters memorial show. We did one for Dominic DeNucci, and that went really well. We're also going to do another one with Joel. We're all going to be at this event in May. So I was going to see if maybe, you wouldn't mind coming back on at some point and being part of the Larry Winters memorial, coming back on, because if I don't put you on with Joel, I'll never hear the end of it. All right. So he'll be like, you said you were going to put me on with him, and now I'm not.
No.
Well, Don, how do you feel about this whole? And I know it was Bay who started the concept of these banners. How do you feel about being nominated to have like a banner of you up in the 2300 arena?
Oh, it's incredibly humbling. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm not big about talking about myself or the wrestling business, but in the wrestling. But yeah, it's quite an honor. I got nominated and put into the New England Wrestling
and well deserved and earned as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jeannie. Recently, just a little story about Joel as well. I got nominated for and put into the New England Wrestling Hall of Fame last 2 years ago. Joel showed up.
Yeah, he told me. Yeah, he did.
What a wonderful thing to see him. Yes, so. Yeah, it was great. Let me say one other thing, if I can, about National Wrestling Federation.
Go ahead.
The number of guys that we gave a start to in that organization, we gave Mick Foley one of the first matches.
Wow.
We gave Bam Bam Bigelow one of the first TV matches.
Wow.
Paul Heyman was our announcer when we started out in the National Wrestling Federation.
Really?
Wow.
We hired Paul as our announcer. Then Paul one night went from being the announcer, he didn't want to announce anymore, to being the manager, Paul E. Dangerously.
Okay.
He managed myself and Damian Kane against the the Fantastics at a show in Reading at the stadium there. And I remember the night we did a big show in it was in New York, Suffern, New York, up by Albany, a TV taping.
Okay.
And Paul came to me and said, "Hey, listen, I got to tell you, I got to leave. I'm going to WCW."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, good for you, you know." And this is where I have a little bit of an issue with Paul. So he left and went there. We then made a deal with. Do you remember the Financial News Network that was on?
Yeah.
That was one of the first national cable channels when everything went nationwide, besides USA. But Financial News Network, we actually had a deal with them to get our show put on there, and which again would have been wonderful for us. And we had we had a high, as I told you, we had a high quality show,
right?
State of the art stuff, and we ended up. The show wasn't on. I called the company. I said, why are we not on? Your promise to start on this date. Well, we got a letter from an attorney in New York saying that you did not have people sign releases, and so we have to block the show. I think it was Paul because he was the announcer. And
you know what? I'm not surprised, Don.
Yeah,
not surprised at all.
That's still in my crawl. I can't say for sure, but I think Paul's dad was an attorney.
Oh,
and
wow.
There is an attorney or was an attorney, and I'm pretty sure it was Paul that clamped on that. Paul was very close to us. I mean, we did a lot with Paul. He would meet us and do some of the editing in Allentown, and so if you go back, if you actually watch some of the NWF shows that are on the internet, that are on YouTube, you'll hear Paul announcing some of those shows.
Oh wow, I got to do that. I really do.
And they have a picture of him interviewing Damien and I. I'm eating a raw steak. And Damien is yelling at Paul, and Paul's looking at me, and I'm flipping meat juice on him, and those things are floating around somewhere. But Paul did work for us too. So I mean, I know he was in the business long before we brought him on. He was doing the photography and stuff for the mags, but he was good as an announcer too.
What's funny? My brother took pictures with Paul when Paul was doing the picture thing, the photographer thing. I never met him. I really don't know him at all, but I have heard a lot of stories, a lot. And I was, we had Bob Artiste on here a couple weeks ago. He was the ring announcer. And he said that the Paul you see in the ring is really that Paul. It's like he really is that coarse or that sneaky. And I don't know him personally, but that's what we're hearing.
Yeah.
And that's sad. That's very sad that somebody like him who went to the WCW, knew that his career was on the rise, couldn't give you guys that much of a break. I mean, that's hurtful. It really is. It's hurtful. But in the wrestling business, as well as I do, you got to be careful, because not only do people stab you in the back, they actually help you turn around while they put the knife in, before they put the knife in.
I was going to say that he's not the only one. He's indicative of the business of itself.
Oh, absolutely. He's not the only one.
And I worked one show for him too, with ECW.
Right. Did you?
Yeah, I did. It was myself. They did a thing where they brought, I think Mick Foley was coming back from an injury or something, and they did a thing with Terry Funk being in a trash can.
Okay.
And so I was wrestling. I had Nancy Benoit as my manager.
Right.
And I was the Mad Dog character. I just come out of retirement to do that show for them.
Okay.
And I worked with Foley, and during the match, as I was being pinned, they brought Funk. He came out of the dumpster and came in and attacked Foley.
Oh,
and
wow.
that was the whole setup, I think, for that feud there with ECW. And then I fought back to the locker room with Tommy Dreamer, and they asked me to do a program with Tommy. But sitting in that locker room at ECW that night, I said, no. No, I was not going to come back to that organization. What I saw in there was enough to make me want to run the other way. So,
wow. That's crazy. I'm not going to ask you to share anything if you don't want to, but I can only imagine.
It was just drugs.
Yeah.
It was not a pleasant place at all.
No, that's crazy. And it's funny because ECW, again, fans don't know this, but ECW, always, that's all you hear is ECW when Paul Heyman's in the ring, and and again, bringing me back to repeating myself, but this is why we have this podcast. Um, so I wanted to ask you a little bit about Woman. How did that come about? How did Nancy Benoit come around to be your manager? Because I thought saw on the internet. I actually tried to put a picture like behind me here. I usually put a picture of our guest, and a lot of them are owned, so I could copy them, but I couldn't paste them or something. But anyway, I tried and I couldn't do it. But how did she become your manager? Or was that just a fluke thing?
Joel put me with her.
Oh, okay.
And the way that happened was that it was the title match between myself and Rocking Rebel.
Okay.
And he had Baby Doll with him, and I had Nancy with me. So that's how that came about. It came about through Tri-State.
Cool. Now, how did you like working for Tri-State?
Oh, I loved it.
Good. Good.
I loved it. I mean, number one, I was with. You had the names that were in there, of course, and they were who they are. I mean, you had a bunch of carnies and guys that are looking out for themselves, and that's like you just said, that's the wrestling business.
Yeah.
But then we had the local guys who were always wonderful to sit with and talk with and be with. I mean, it was a great bunch of guys, and Joel was always a great guy and a man of his word, always. Which again, rare in the wrestling business. Although I met a few good people in the business and that ran shows, and Joel is definitely a top of the list. And yeah, I loved it.
Well, if there was any reason, any opening at all for anything like that, would you ever like go back? Not as a wrestler, of course, but in some other capacity, like maybe commentator, announcer. Like, it's still in your blood.
Well, it wasn't until a few years ago, and then when the Hall of Fame thing came up with New England, and in comes Joel. I said,
Joel. It's always Joel.
Yeah, well, it was that night, and of all the people that are there, I mean, there were some wonderful, talented people there.
Mm-hmm.
Guys I hadn't seen in a long time, but in comes Joel, and I said, "What the heck?" And it was just like, even though I hadn't seen him in 20, 30 years, maybe. It was just like yesterday.
Yeah,
it's funny. That's when you have a bond with somebody, when you pick up where you left off, and that's how it was.
Well, that's like it is with us too. Now, Jeannie and I go back with Joel. Like my daughter's 40, so Joel knew her before she was a year old. So did Larry Winters. So we go back a long way. They got to understand our relationship. Joel's and my relationship is almost like Barney and Fred in the Flintstones. Like we love each other to death, but we do nothing but argue and fight and argue. And by the way, he does lie to me. I'm just saying that publicly right now. Okay, every chance he gets. But no, seriously, I love him dearly. And it's funny now, we stopped talking. Well, not that we stopped talking, we drifted for the same thing a good few years, probably more than 10, I'd say. And then we kind of hooked back up again. And we have a really good relationship. And it's funny because every single time we talk on the phone before we hang up, I make him say, "I love you." I say, "I love you." I make him say, "I love you." And if he doesn't say it, I call him back and say, "You didn't say I love you." So he's like, "Why do I have to say it to you?" I said, "Because you're supposed to. Everybody's supposed to say it, But it's funny because he has never changed. He's always been smart. He's always been good at what he does. And he's always been a friend. He really has. He's always been a friend. And like I said, Jeannie lived with us for a little while, and she grew up around Joel, my ex-husband, myself. And we, thank God, we have a really good relationship now. And I'd like for it to stay that way. And he gives us a lot of input on our podcast. And it's accepted. It's welcome all the time. Sometimes I'll tell him to shut up and I'll hang up, but it's accepted. But I'm really, and again, I'm going to say it again, I'm really glad we didn't have him on the show for this particular time. I wanted it to be, I'm glad it was all you, only because Jeannie and I were like, just listening. You have such good information. You have such a good past. You have an incredible history. You seem like a darling of a man. Okay.
No, thank you.
And what you've done over the years is incredible. You seem to have helped so many people. And do you still do any work with addiction, or did your program Beyond No still on?
No, it's not. I mean, I think I told you I was a licensed therapist here in Massachusetts,
Right.
and I ran a hospital program for people with HIV/AIDS addiction, and that's what I retired from. I also did a lot of outpatient work. When I left that too. I said
Okay.
it's time. But I still do teaching with nurses at nursing
Okay.
homes and assisted living around addiction issues with seniors. So I still do that piece of it. And but right now, I try to when I leave something and I start something else, I try to focus on
Stay
that.
with
But
what you start.
yeah, but again, it leaks into things I know leak into what I do today, and it's actually worked out very well for the attorney. He's got offices in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island.
Wow.
The people I've met, like I said, that we just did that big presentation last week on things, and so the clinical work I did in the past still come up. You don't think of an elder law attorney doing, being involved with clinical work like that, but when you're working with seniors more than any other group, it's really become important for him to incorporate that into his practice. So I'm glad to be a part of that as well.
That's great. You can't do anything without being hands-on. That's a big thing,
Yes.
It's amazing. You said to me when we were talking on text during the week and you said it here on the show, that you are not very comfortable talking about yourself. Okay. I get that. I really get that. But you have so much, in my opinion anyway, you have so much to offer, so much to give. You've done so much that I think personally you should talk more about yourself, because your life and your sentiments and all that are incredible. You seem like a very kind, humble man. You seem like a very good person. From what Joel says about you, he thinks you're a stand-up guy, and I can see that myself. So I wish you weren't uncomfortable talking about yourself, because you have an incredible story, Don. I mean, a really incredible story. Your story has honestly touched me a lot. And
thank you.
no, I'm serious, and I'm praying.
No, I believe it. I mean, thank you again, sincerely. But to me, I mean, I get as much back as I give, and that's the way I look at it. And
that's good.
And I've always gotten, like with addiction. I hate to go back to that, but that's my most recent thing I could talk about. Like working with, sometimes you don't have any luck working with the addict. And then you have to work with the family, because the family's got to live with that. You know what's going to happen at the end. And so the family needs that support too.
Absolutely.
The same thing happens when you work with seniors, when you have a senior with Alzheimer's or dementia. The family, the caretakers need support. The caretakers sometimes need more support. They're the ones putting up with with the brunt of all this. And
Absolutely.
so I get as much back as I give. That's the way I look at it. Wrestling the same way. When I went out there and I would see kids smiling, I know they hated me as a that was my character.
Yeah, as a wrestler. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would chase them. One of the things I had, because my degree is in psychology, I sort of understood crowds and crowd control, and I would always go after a fan that was maybe 40 rows up. So the people that were down would not feel threatened by me. But they're yelling at me, they're doing all these things to me, but I'm still going up after that person up there because they feel safe when they do that.
Yeah,
part of that was allowing the fans to feel part of the show. I remember the guy, I think the guy that was at the shows that would take this hat all the time and throw it on the ground and step on it. The hat guy, but the people look forward to those things, and they wanted to be part of that show. There was an NWF show I did one time that we had this. It was in Bricktown, and we went back there 3 times.
Okay.
And then this fan was always at ringside. He had a glass eye, and it was very easy to see. And he was on me all the time. And I would call him Crystal, right?
What? Wait, say that again.
I would call him Crystal.
Crystal. Oh my
Because
God.
he had the glass eye, right?
Right.
Well, I see you're back, Crystal. So one time I got a letter from the guy. He had a picture of his eye. He was holding it up to the camera, and a picture of himself. He said, "I see you," right? I loved it.
I see you.
I loved it. And I love the guy, but that's I try to have fun. That's the most important thing, and making the fans feel part of it. They paid money for that.
Yeah, they
and
did.
to think that they're just going to sit there and not feel something from the people that are out there performing, when if it wasn't for them, that's what I got back from them, and it was important. It made me feel so good when I know they left there feeling good that night.
That's awesome. That is really awesome, Don. I want to keep you on here forever, okay? And Joel's always yelling at me. He said you got to make your podcast more than an hour.
Yes, I got to shut up. I know it's almost done. So I'm sorry.
No. There's no time limit, Don. Absolutely not. But what I want to do, like I said, I asked you before, this is what we're going to do with a couple other wrestlers. I want you to come back another time, if you would, okay?
Yes, of course.
And finish up what you were talking about. Maybe between now and then, make some notes about more things you might remember. And we are definitely going to have Joel on the show at that point. And then again, for the Larry Winters memorial, I'd like to have you on as well. Other people who are close to him. I also, when it gets close, because I think our Rasslin Radio has helped people sign the petition. I really believe that. So we started out at, like, of course, nothing. Then we went up to 300 and something. Now we're up to 542 signatures, and I think that's awesome. So when we get all the signatures and the preparations are made, again, I would like to have you come back and talk about that. And when it does, and I'm not saying if, I'm saying when it does get hung, we will all be there. And I would like to maybe we'll see how it works. Maybe do a podcast from there, or maybe, I really want to push this as much as I can. And I'm also asking you, when we post today's show, would you mind sharing it on your page?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we're going to post it. I'm going to tag you in it, of course. And then if you could, and I'll tell you what, I hope to meet you someday really soon, like for real. Hopefully we'll see each other in the near future. But Don, I cannot thank you enough. This is completely different than I thought it was going to be. I thought you were just going to come in and talk about, DC Drake and Don and this and that and the chains but like, you have such an incredible story, like unreal. And I'm honored. I'm absolutely honored that you were on the show today and you agreed to do it with us. Well,
I'm honored that you guys actually let me be on and put up with me for an hour. So not many people put that long, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, it was amazing. It was amazing. Honest to God, we actually, like, I'm talking now, but I can't believe I kept my mouth shut that long. And that's the truth, okay? Joel
will be proud of you, Carm. Joel will be proud.
As soon as we drop this, Joel's going to call me right away. He already texted me. I don't know if you noticed me looking over here, because I hope you had a great show today. But, we'll hear from him. Don't worry. But listen, Don, thank you so much again. I'm so glad you came on. I want to meet you one day, and then we'll be in touch, definitely.
Okay, Carmela, Jeannie, thank you so much.
No problem. Anytime.
Oh, thank you.
Take care. Nice seeing you. Bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow.
Oh, my God. Is he amazing or what?
He is unreal. Honest to God, I never expected that. Unbelievable. Everybody, I'm telling you, you got to watch this episode at least twice, okay? He was unreal. We're going to get off now because I have to go get ready. You have to get ready, or you're probably already ready. But we're going to go to the wrestling matches tonight.
Yes.
Yes, between Marlboro and what's that other town? Morganville. Okay.
Morganville.
Yeah, so we're going to go. The doors open at 6:30. The match should start at 7.
Yes.
And it's called High Stakes. It's an ECWA match show, and we're going to see.
Yes, Ooh La La is going to be on it. Joey Ace, my love. So many others. Darius Carter, their champ, who is amazing. It's going to be a really, really good show.
Yeah, it's really good. And do you have the address, Jeannie? I know it's called the Dugout, but it's like 712 something. 712 Jeannie Avenue or Street. It's GIN or GINESC, I think it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's called the Dugout. Just look up the Dugout. We're hoping to see you there tonight. Again, don't forget, May of 25, May 3rd. Okay,
Yes.
keep that date open. And also, please sign the petition. We don't have that many more people that we need. Just ask a friend to sign it, okay? I actually just got a lawyer that I know up in New York, my friend Mary, to sign it. And it, you know, all you got to do is ask. Everybody will do it. So we're going to do it, and we're going to have a lot of interesting, incredible shows coming up. So please keep listening. Please keep watching. Next week is going to be a really interesting show. We are going to have the son of Harley Race.
Yes.
Justin Race is going to be on our show. God willing, everything comes through the way it's supposed to. That'll be interesting to hear what a kind of guy Harley Race was. We heard a lot of stories. We read a lot of stuff, but let's talk to his son and let's see what really happened. Okay, everybody. Love you.
All right.
Jeannie, I love
you. See you later.
Okay, see you later. See you next week. Okay.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.